Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news New Year's Eve night for the LSU Tiger fans as five-star defensive lineman Dominick McKinley flips his commitment from Texas A&M to LSU. A massive get for Brian Kelly, but the more important thing that I'm looking at, not only Dominick McKinley coming in and a kind of an immediate impact player for LSU, but you take a look at what they're doing in the state of Louisiana. The top 7 recruits in Louisiana heading to LSU, 10 of the top 11 recruits heading to LSU. When Brian Kelly and this LSU program, when this LSU football program is rolling, it's dominating the state of Louisiana. That's exactly what the LSU Tigers have done in the 2024 class. Want to get into Dominick McKinley and then talk about a few other commitments that could be rolling in for the LSU Tiger fans in the next couple of days. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support, especially from the LSU fans, has been massive. Whether we're talking high school recruiting, whether we're talking transfer portal, you guys have continued to show a ton of support to the boys. Can't thank you guys enough. New Year's Eve night, not a place the fellas would rather be than talking to little LSU Tigers on the recruiting trail. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to give you the T-box here. Five-star defensive lineman Dominick McKinley. How are we feeling?
I mean, you kind of talk about it. New Year's Eve night. If you think we're sleeping, we're partaking in the festivities when you got college football news breaking. No. We're obviously on doing it. And again, if you're an LSU fan, that's huge. It was honestly kind of the last big remaining piece in that state, or one of the last ones, obviously. So again, to be able to lock that up. And frankly, for LSU, you're seeing, like, I know they hit that portal pretty hard in their first year or so, but I think you can very much obviously see a trend in Brian Kelly's philosophy that he's going to do it the old school way. And if you can recruit these type of classes, I think that's perfect. Like, that's probably the better way to do it if he can do it year in and year out and dominate the state like he's doing.
That's something we've talked about. There's not many, and I don't think enough people in the national media. I think the LSU fans get it. I don't think the national media gets it in terms of the roster Brian Kelly inherited from Coach O. I mean, Coach O, obviously, massive things for LSU, but from a depth chart and roster standpoint, this program was not in a very good place when Coach O left. And Brian Kelly has done a really good job balancing recruiting at the high school ranks at a high level, landing back-to-back top 10 classes, but also utilizing the transfer portal. And for LSU, yes, there are problems with this roster that are going to get addressed, but for LSU fans, what you're most excited about, and something that I don't think a ton of coaches, head coaches, I should say, across the country do a great job of, is balancing, okay, we're going to recruit the high school class. We're also going to use the transfer portal. Not a ton of coaches towing the line the right way. Though you look at what Brian Kelly's doing, yes, he's going to use the transfer portal, but he's also going to get it done on the high school class. And I think this signifies the success Brian Kelly is having in terms of building this roster on the recruiting trail here.
And at the end of the day, that's how, I don't know if he can do it any other way. That's how he's grown up doing it. I think that's how he's comfortable doing it. I think, again, a guy whose main selling point and what he's done, it's not necessarily be the ace recruiter, although at LSU, I certainly expect him to be what he is now, where he is in the top 10, maybe sneak in the top 5 on his big years. But you'll see him develop guys up through their rankings. That's what he did at Notre Dame. They never recruited at that elite level. They were always really solid, but never elite. And you're starting to kind of see, I think, at LSU, he should be able to recruit this type of class consistently, but also you certainly think he's going to be able to do an excellent job developing guys, because that's still his bread and butter.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, what's Brian Kelly's bread and butter here? Sustained culture, something, again, that Coach O, you hit a hot streak there with some of those teams, but the sustained culture, maybe not so much there. Brian Kelly, you know that's going to happen, and you know the players are going to get developed. They're going to go to the league. You've seen that the last couple of years for LSU. I want to talk a little Dominick McKinley. And again, we're talking about this LSU program and where it's going. Again, the boys, like, very optimistic about where this program is going. But Dill, I know you've broken down Dominick McKinley a couple times, including when he committed to Texas A&M. Tell us a little bit about Dominick McKinley, what he's bringing to the table for the LSU Tigers here.
Yeah, so when I was going through his tape, especially for that A&M video, I mean, one thing that stands out is you don't see a lot of guys at his size play fundamentally sound football, and especially not play football with any leverage. I don't know if you watch these big, like dominant high school defensive linemen, but they often play high. They want to make tackles. I get it. No offensive lineman's moving you off the ball, whether you're standing up straight, whether you're in good position. But Dominick McKinley, you kind of see the fundamentals are there, at least from a leverage standpoint. He plays really good for that size, plays really low. And that's something that's going to be wildly important, I think, going forward. Because when you're that tall and on the thinner side, frankly, I'm sure he's going to get bulked up. But I think he's probably going to stay athletic, stay relatively lean. And if you're going to be that type of guy, it's abundantly important to be able to play with that type of leverage that you see. Again, it didn't matter for him in high school, but building the habits, I think that should make a difference and allow him to play earlier than some other guys.
The biggest concern or biggest problem you see with a lot of these top 5-star caliber defensive linemen is they're just bigger, stronger, faster than the guys they're lining up against in high school. And when you're bigger, faster, stronger, you don't necessarily need to play football at a high level, right? The technique doesn't necessarily need to be there. So you get to college and you have some of those growing pains where you can't just win with your raw athleticism at the SEC level. Dominick McKinley, one, exhibits that, but from an athleticism standpoint, two things I like about Dominick McKinley. One, he carries 275 pounds, about as good as any defensive lineman I've seen coming out of high school. I mean, he is rocked up. He's extremely solid and very athletic. You see a lot of top defensive linemen with a ton of size, but not really the athleticism. You're kind of getting the best of both worlds. And two, for Dominick McKinley, and we have this conversation a lot, is he's a guy that you turn on the high school tape, you'll see him play the edge spot, and he's athletic enough to do so. You'll see him kick in on the inside. And again, the size and physicality he has as well.
But the ability to move like and be fluid at that size is, again, that's what stands out. Rare trait, because you just don't see that. A lot of guys kind of have to grow into themselves. Like when you grow, and I don't have any experience with that. What am I, 5'9"? I don't know what it's like to be that big, but you kind of see those guys when they hit that tall, that big, that strong at that young of an age. You do feel like there is some growing into the body that needs to be done. You just look at the fluidity of what he has, and you're right, the positional versatility. It all tells me I think he's going to come in and probably play. I'd be really surprised if he wasn't playing a little bit year one, frankly.
100%. And you look, LSU wants to establish the line of scrimmage. That is where you win football games in the SEC. Now, the storyline for me here, and we've talked about this a lot for LSU, dominating the state of Louisiana. Right now, Dominick McKinley, the number one prospect from the state, now committed to LSU. You now scroll down. This is what LSU's recruiting classes should look like in the state of Louisiana. If you're the best player in Louisiana, you're going to LSU, right? You're the top 11 or the top 10 prospects committed to LSU. Now, Dill, what's most exciting for LSU fans is it doesn't sound like they're done. Now, we're going to dip our toes into the 2025 class real quick. Bryce Underwood, the number one prospect in the country, the number one quarterback in the country, committing on January 6th. Now, as the fellas, we're Michigan fans, pulling for Michigan. It sounds like LSU's in the driver's seat in this recruitment. January 6th, Bryce Underwood announcing. Dill, I know we're very familiar with Bryce Underwood. This is not, and we talk a lot of recruiting, and we try to avoid the hyperbolic statements of this guy is a game-changing kind of player. Bryce Underwood might be that guy.
I mean, you see it 1-1-1-1-1 right across the board, 24/7, the composite rankings. Pretty much everyone's in agreement that this guy, he's the guy in this class. And I mean, at the end of the day, when you sign that type of quarterback, that's like you would kind of open your window up to go win a national championship. Yep. LSU obviously knows it. When you get that generational guy in there, Jaden Daniels was obviously there too, but Joe Burrow was like kind of he was the guy. He brought that program up from, I don't want to say it was nothing. It was like kind of hovering around solid and whatnot. But
it was down. And when you have the chance to bring a quarterback in like Bryce Underwood, and LSU fans saw it with the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. Now, unfortunately, you didn't have the defense to complement what you're doing with the offense and what Jaden Daniels brought. Bryce Underwood bringing a national championship caliber quarterback to LSU. But what's most exciting is we just talked about a 5-star defensive lineman in the 2024 class and Dominick McKinley. You feel confident that with Bryce Underwood in, and you have a very, very good class coming in 2024, you might be able to have that complementary game where I mean, LSU, you're right. The window for national championship certainly going to be open for the next couple of years if Bryce Underwood winds up in Baton Rouge here.
Yeah, and that's just there's nothing more exciting in college football than landing that guy.
Yeah.
So kudos to LSU if they do it. Obviously put together a really, really nice class in 24. I'd be surprised if they didn't put a really nice class together in 25 as well. Obviously pulling up a couple more guys. So it feels like it's rolling again. This is what you need to see from Brian Kelly. Needs to recruit the high school level really well. And that's, I think, frankly, why he came to LSU. I think he thinks, man, if I can just get a little bit more talent out of that high school world and I can develop the same way I did at Notre Dame, I should be able to win multiple national championships.
100% why he left. Why did he leave at Notre Dame? Is we can't get those top classes into Notre Dame that you can get at LSU.
You don't have the state of Louisiana when you're Notre Dame. At LSU, if you're rolling, you got it.
And that's what they have. And what I think most exciting is, I mean, you're seeing him kind of get it, right? We knew there might be some growing pains in terms of the first two recruiting classes and Brian Kelly digging his teeth in to recruiting that area of the country. He's doing it now. Another guy in the 2025 class, you talk about Bryce Underwood, the number one player in the country. Now you're going after the number one running back in the country, Harlem Berry, committing on January 3rd. This is a guy that, watching his tape, just extremely exciting. You talk about, and LSU is doing a great job of getting speed on offense. Like that, you're clearly seeing like Caden Durham in the 2024 class, one of the fastest players in 2024. Now you look to 2025, a guy like Harlem Berry, 10.57 in the 100-meter dash time. You look at LSU and what they're putting together on both sides of the football. Harlem Berry committing January 3rd. Again, LSU in the driver's seat here.
What are the birdies saying? Big news for LSU coming on the pipeline, maybe you're hearing on Twitter?
It sounds like it's going to be, and I didn't even know. When you saw those rumors, you thought it would be Harlem Berry and Bryce Underwood. I didn't know it was Dominick McKinley when the ball was dropping on New Year's Eve, and that's exactly what we got. The future of this LSU program, extremely exciting. The boys, ball dropping. We're not giving up an opportunity to talk in LSU recruiting class that is sounding like it's going to get really hot again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.